Anna Burns-Francis makes a very good point. I like to give credit where credit's due, not just kind of steal it as my own. She made a very good point, which was about all this extra work you're talking about, Joey. 100,000 families, 4 times a year. That's 400,000 invoices that the IRD is now going to have to look through, go through, which will probably require more staff at a time where this government is looking for 6.5% to 8% savings in all government departments. So at the same time, this government is actually cutting back on bureaucratic work in government agencies. They're also lumping them with a huge amount of extra work, which has been shown in this. So this conversation then starts off with it's. I know we kind of talk about him being a CEO, but honestly, the way he speaks now, it feels to me like he's selling this. Like it feels to me like this is the launch of our latest product. And he's got his black skivvy on and he's up the front of the big screen and he's saying all the positive things about this to the shareholders. That's my vibe. Now, you may see it differently, and if you do, tell me in the chat. But I just get the sense he goes into salesman mode and I don't know who he's selling it to. It's a strange, I find it peculiar. But let's have a look. The first part of this conversation goes for a couple of minutes and it's him just talking about the announcement and how fabulous it is.
Well, it's certainly going to help 100,000 families of low and middle income workers that actually have really high early childhood education costs. It's a really fantastic announcement. It's designed to help them with the cost of living crisis. So we're really excited to be able to announce it. It's what we talk.
It's like, you know, people who talk about being smart, the smartest people never have to tell people that they're smart. Do you know what I mean? So if someone who's doing the policy tells you how fantastic it is that kind of the same? Like a dumb person trying to convince you that they're smart, that it's actually bad policy? Like if it's good policy, do you really need to tell everyone, hey guys, just so everyone knows, this is great policy. Yeah, are you aware? If you're not aware, be aware. This is great policy. Stupid.
Talked about before the election campaign. We're just following through and delivering on what we said we'd do.
You just mentioned cost of living. Nicola Willis mentioned cost of living yesterday. She said, quote, so they can choose how to use it. She suggested a family outing. Isn't that inflationary?
Well, what I just say to you is it's really important. You've got families doing it incredibly tough, as you know. With
just remember, more money in the economy is inflationary. They're giving the money straight to the adults who will go out. Now, it's interesting. I didn't catch Nicola Willis saying that. They might go on an outing. I thought this was for childcare. What? Isn't this to pay for childcare? So the government already knows this is not going to go to childcare. It's going other places. Yes, and I know you can from the same pool of money, but it sounds weird to say, yes, we're going to give you $75 a week for childcare that you can go on an outing with. What? Doesn't seem right.
High levels of inflation, food prices, rents, mortgage rates, early childhood education costs are amongst some of the highest in the OECD. This is going to help those families. And I think that's what's fantastic is that if you've got a family, you can get up to $75 per week in subsidy on those early childhood costs. That may be the difference between a partner choosing to go back to work or not. Okay,
hang on. Sorry. You know how he says, I can relate? He said that about people losing their jobs. He's now saying that someone might choose to go back to work because the government is giving them up to $75 a week. Do you honestly anyone in the chat
3 months?
Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. You get it's $975 every 3 months. Is that really going to cause anyone to go, go back to work now? What? Or give up work, I should say. I'll give up work now. $975 every 3 months. Like, relatable much? Maybe not.
It'd be the difference between someone taking on some extra hours. That will help those families a lot.
We have seen, though, successive governments over the years that have tried to work with childcare systems and subsidies in this country, that the companies every time simply hike their fees. And you were asked yesterday if you had any reassurances from the childcare industry that they wouldn't just simply hike their fees.
And for those people watching this clip, I said in a previous conversation, I spoke to someone who co-owns 3 early childhood education. Without prompting, the first thing they said to me was, it'll finally give us a chance to raise our prices. So for people watching the clip tomorrow on YouTube, I know the rest of you who are watching us live have already heard this, but this is for them. The first thing they said to me, without prompting, was, finally, we'll be able to raise our prices.
And I didn't hear that you were able to offer you'd had that reassurance. So how can you guarantee that the same thing won't just happen again?
Well, look, I think there's several things. We've had several big, had a big ECE provider come out yesterday just saying, look, they want to be able to see this money get through to their parents. As you identified, and as we've said yesterday, we have some of the highest early childhood education costs in the world.
Looking for an answer, Mr.
There's a couple of
Luxon.
things going on. One is there's a lot of competition in the market. If parents ultimately don't like the ECE provider and their rates, they will move. We do not expect ECE providers to increase their costs, increase their prices, because we actually...
They'll just move. They'll just move to another ACE provider.
Yeah.
As long as they have space, as long as it is within transport distance. The bus, you're paying more for buses. You're paying more for fuel. It's just easy. Just find another provider.
But it's worse than that. There are places in New Zealand where basically, out of the goodness of their hearts, people will run businesses at a loss because the local community can't afford to pay anything more. They can't afford to pay it. So those people are trapped by their whatever a good word for poorness is, by their lack of income. They can't go anywhere else. Now, they're also proportionally quite high on the rankings of early childhood centres that are currently shutting down. Again, this is from my conversation with an EC owner today. Right, so I grew up in Auckland, so I know Auckland, so I think South Auckland when I think about these areas. I don't know, South Dunedin, other areas around rural places where finances are a bit more strapped. That parents don't pay anything because they can't afford to pay anything, and the places run at a loss. Those parents can't just go, ugh, the service sucks, I'll go elsewhere. Again, this is a privilege of the wealthy to have that kind of attitude, because what brings choice is finances. They always say that thing that money doesn't buy happiness. I kind of agree with that, although I have seen someone on a jet ski. I've never seen someone grumpy on a jet ski. So money can bring that kind of happiness. But definitely what money does bring is choice. Choices in life. And so to have someone say, well, they can just move elsewhere, that's sort of a privilege, or at least a unrelatability to people who don't have the financial ability to have that choice, whether it's through what Chewy said, whether it's through the area they live in. There's only one, and it's the last one left because all the other ones have shut down.
Why would Chris Luxon know about this, by the way? He hasn't raised his kids here. He hasn't lived in New Zealand for decades. He hasn't had to deal with any of this. This is why he's so blasé about it. He has no real world experience about the things that he's fucking talking about and the decisions that he's making for people that aren't like him, that don't have his privilege, that don't have his money, that don't have his fluidity to go on a whim. Oh, we'll just do this. We'll just go to the ECE that grows on a fucking tree down the backyard. He's just made things more expensive, harder in every single way for people that have less options. He's never been in this position.
Yeah, that's right. And that's why I said last night when he was talking about losing jobs, he doesn't relate. He can be empathetic. You can empathize, but you can't relate if you have no ability or no experience of what that person. If you haven't walked a mile in those people's shoes, you can't relate. You can be empathetic, you can be caring, but you can't relate. Let's just get to the end of this. There's about 30 seconds to go, or 20 seconds on this clip.
Actually, also will have for the first time a lot of data that we'll be collecting to be able to monitor ECE charges and prices. That's something that we just don't have that data available today, but through this process we'll be able to monitor that as well. So look, the reaction I've had from ECE providers is they're very excited about the prospect of getting money directly into their parents' bank accounts.
Why would an ECE provider be happy about money going straight into their parents' bank accounts? See, I call bullshit.
It's a nonsense thing.
I call bullshit on that. Because what they'd be excited about is money going into their bank account. So I call bullshit on any ECE provider who has said that. I call bullshit.
And actually supporting them to do that. And we don't expect them to raise prices at all. We expect them to be able to deliver the subsidy straight through to parents to help parents with their cost of living.
Look.
So there's part one, Chewy. I've got a couple of other parts to play with them. They're much shorter, I promise, but that's where we're at right so far.
Can we dial down on this fucking nonsense that he's going, this is going to help parents with the cost of living? After 3 months.
Probably 4.
Getting money back after 3 months does not help with the cost of living. The cost of living bites every single week. Every time you put money in the car, every time you put money into our supermarket duopoly, every time you have to pay your landlord for his rent, which absolutely isn't coming down. Every time you have to catch a bus to work.
Hang on, Chewy. We've been told there's downward pressure coming on rents. Are you saying that's not true? Come on.
There's downward pressure on these nuts, Pat. Like it is just.
You're so down with the kids.
It is just a fantasy for this man with his millions of dollars to go, oh, they get back after 3 months. Cost of living crisis solved. Like he knows the problems. He said we've got some of the highest early childhood care costs in the OECD. Fantastic. Solve that problem. It's not you get your money back after 3 weeks as long as you fill out the forms correctly, as long as you've got all the proof that we ask for. That's not it. That's not an efficient way to help people with their weekly costs. That is because this man does not work on a weekly basis. He does not have to think about these things.
Yeah.
His wife doesn't have to think about these things. The people in his circle, the people he talks to every day, don't have to think about these things. And that's what happens when you look at a man, Mr. Money Man. He's good at business. He'll be good for the rest of us. We aren't businesses. We are people that have bills. Like this bullshit. What is the quickest way to get money into the hands of the people that need it? We have the mechanism. We have a giant government department that knows how much people earn. That is how you deliver that quickly. You had the mechanisms to regulate the things that cost people money. You had the ability to regulate rents. You had the ability to crack down on the supermarkets, introduce more competition. You have all of these tools that you're not fucking touching. And you can just go, oh, we're thinking of middle New Zealand. We're thinking of wage earners. We're thinking of the cost of living. Blah, 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 blah. I look at my bobblehead. It is all bullshit. And they are fiddling around the edges so it looks like they still give a shit about you this long after the election.
To answer your question, the way that they get money into those people's hands is they have a bracket of earning that's tax-free. I mean, that's how you give a poorer family their money back. Up to whatever, $20,000, $25,000, $30,000 is tax-free. And we don't have to worry about all of these other regulations. One hit, done, all covered. Simple.
Fuck all admin on that as well.
Yeah,
because
true.
It's everyone.
Yep.
It is everyone.
Because
it's like
IKEA says something.
It's like what we're talking about with the food in schools, right? When you introduce barriers and hoops and cutoffs and that sort of thing, you introduce complexity and cost. So we talked about this pre-election, tax-free, at the bottom, your first X amount of dollars, tax-free, and that is the same for fucking everyone. There is no admin on it, or very minimal admin. And it's equal. We like it when it's equal, don't we? Everybody gets it.
Because IKEA says, thanks for the $5 super chat, says poorer people are also time poor as well and won't have the time or knowledge to put the invoices in. I think that's absolutely completely
longer
fair.
Hours for less money. You are pulling those extra shifts because you have to. These are the people working the 60 or 70 hour weeks. I don't have time for fucking invoices.
Yeah.
The car's broken down, and now the money's gone, and now I can't get to my I was talking to someone that used the example of what happens to a poorer person when their car breaks down. Right, you don't have money to fix it. Fuck, maybe I'll go to a car yard and get a loan, and they'll get like
at
this 22%. Is why you see people, they make bad rushed financial decisions, and people will look at them and going, oh, they can't be that poor. Look at their car. They're paying through the arsehole through it, but that was still the best choice for them because they can't be without a car. They have to get to job to keep earning, and this is the trap that poverty is. Yeah. You know, they have to get their kid to early childhood because they've got to get to their job, and the less reliable that is, if they have to cut down their early childhood hours because they can't afford it, they need to be out of work more to account for that, then you're in a poverty trap.
Indeed. Okay, let's have a look at the next clip.
Never seen a poverty trap.
Well, this is also now Anna Burns Francis does quite well here, asking him about the question about how long will it take to get their money back, because we can work it out. If it's a rebate, you do it at the end of 3 months. It takes another 2 to 4 weeks to come through. So at the end of 4 months, you'll get your first payment. For some reason, he's not that forward with his answer to Anna Burns Francis.
The way that you described, or Nicola Willis rather had to describe the system yesterday, it's not how you wanted to implement this reimbursement. It is going to be every 3 months. How long will it take once a parent uploads their invoices? How long will it take for them to get their money back?
Good question.
Well, look, it's not what we ideally wanted. We want to be able to do it and be able to pay people weekly. The systems don't support doing that, but we are determined to get people this relief and the support that they need in a cost of living crisis. So yes, it's a bit of a different process.
The
money still comes through, $975 each quarter. There's a quarterly submission process of invoices. Already yesterday, we had one of the largest providers saying that they're going to try and make life much easier by actually preparing 3-month invoices for families. They want their
who do you think? Who are we all guessing? I think it's pretty clear.
families to be able to access this money and these funds and make it as easy as possible.
And then once you submit the invoice, how long do you expect it will be until parents can get the money back?
It'll be as quickly as possible. IRD will make sure we operationalise that as quickly as possible to get the funds back into people's bank accounts each quarter.
Can you give us any sort of time frame?
Oh, no, that'll be up to IRD to work through and to make sure. But, yeah, they've got a good history of making sure the payments get to people's bank accounts quickly. And that's the important thing. It gets straight into their bank accounts.
That's actually not the important thing. The important thing is people being able to pay for their kids' childcare, whether it goes straight into their bank account or not. Let's just roll straight into this last one, and then we can wrap up this part of the conversation because it kind of leads out of the last one quite cleanly. That Luxon gets asked about IRD needing more staff, and again, not really much of an answer. But like I said, it could be up to 400,000 invoices a year, new invoices a year. That's going to need a staff to take care of.
IRD are going to have to hire more staff for this, aren't they?
Again, that'll be up for them, but we've built that into the costs around this program.
They've said they're going to have to hire more staff. Do you know how many more staff they're going to have to hire to implement this policy?
Again, we've built that into the $723 million the program actually.
So if you've built it in, then you know the answer to my question. How many? Because you can't have built it in without having this many people costs this much money. So now, Mr. Luxon, could you please answer the question? Because you say it's built in, so how many?
Costs, and that's all part of making sure we can implement it, make sure we get the money back into people's bank accounts so they get some relief in a cost of living crisis.
How much does the extra staff cost for them to check each and every invoice and make those payments back to families?
Again, Anna, I'd just say to you, it's all manageable. We've worked that up in the back.
Sure. So because you've worked it out, you have a number. What is that number?
Ground with
I'm sure
IRD
it is. Can you give us the number?
Well, I'm just saying those are choices for IRD to make sure they're staffed up to deliver it, and they will be, and they are. What we're doing is we're telling people early and making sure that people understand that this is going to be available so they can actually get organised, and ECE providers can get organised to help and support their parents. What's really important, Anna, if you're out there in New Zealand at the moment, it is tough. And if you're dealing with rising levels of food prices, fuel, rent, mortgage rates, I can tell you what parents are really hearing from this story, this conversation, is they're getting $975 a quarter to help defray some of their early childhood expenses, which are high.
So here's the other thing that this government's doing. They are cutting back on public servants and loading more work onto that department. IRD needs to find savings. 16,000 bureaucrats. IRD has to cut back on the number of people. Right, all government departments are, but just backroom people too, just backroom people, like the accountants and stuff out the back of IRD. So there's going to be a cutting down of people whilst they're loading more work onto the department. And then it's not going to work, it's going to fail, and like we've been saying, then they'll stand back and say, see, we've told you all along, team, government's broken, but we can fix it after they've broken it, Chewy.
It's real easy to answer that question. We've built the funding in. We've built in the funding to cover for 2,000 full-time workers, the equivalent of, if he knew it, and he knew he would have got asked these questions, he would have come prepared, and he isn't, because it's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. It is all bullshit. I'm furious about all of this. I saw, just to pivot to a slightly different thing on a theme, I saw an interview with Nicola Willis about the ferries, where, how much is it going to cost us to break this contract for the ferries? Oh, that's commercially sensitive. We can't talk about it. That might be true, but it's all reeking of kick it down the line. We know that this is going to blow up in our face.
Yeah.
The fucking hand grenade is already smoking, but we would prefer it to blow up a couple of weeks from now, 3 or 4 months down the track, because then it'll be a different scandal. And I think this is what it is. Like, there is a butcher's bill to what they're doing. It will become due, and people will fucking notice. But it's not today. Not today. We're just later. But yeah, I think the mention of, we've talked to a major ECE provider, that is 100% Best Start, wholly owned by the Wright Family Foundation. That is the only provider that will have literally the heir of Christopher Luxon, and they will be going, you know what this will be excellent for? Our profit margins. Because that's all they're thinking. They are farming people's children for profit, and we are somehow, as a country, all okay with that.